Okay, as always, glad you're back on the Investigative Journal on this Thursday, and today we're going to talk about the the Pope's dirty past. And every time I start thinking I'm going to do a show about the Pope, I get really chills up all these visions go through my head about the genocides in the past and all these pedophile priests and all of the shenanigans the Vatican is involved with, along with the Jesuit order. Isn't this beautiful? Here we got a Pope who's with the Jesuits, so I can talk about both of them in the same breath. And boy, when I do a show like this, it's the Pope's dirty past. Don't think that this hasn't been said before, and nobody cares. I'm looking through, and I had to go through to research this a little bit. And I don't like spending time on these guys. I'm looking at him now. Picture this guy. He's got his hand up like he's your friend, wearing these stupid robes and the cross of Jesus. And he's a Satanist. I mean, this guy, and he wears white. He wears that little beanie hat when he's not wearing the martyr, which is an old occult hat from the old days. And every time I do a story like this, I have to look and see a lot of this stuff has been covered in the news, the mainstream newspapers, and there's some of these mainstream online newspapers now, like the Daily Beast, the Daily Caller, the National Incentive for Humanity. I don't know. You can probably think of 100. Who knows who these people are? And they cover this story and they give you some kind of idea. Well, this guy could have been involved in the Argentinian Dirty Wars. Well, why is it the dirty war? Every war's a dirty war. I mean, why is this one dirtier than any other? Give me some facts that, we know this. Look, I'm going to make a bold statement here, but if he's a Jesuit, he was in Argentina back then. You can bet he was behind some of the murders and all of the garbage going on there. And what will happen, though, is the way the mainstream will present this story, people who are on the true scale, like I always talk about here, the 1 to 10 true scale, 1 being you don't know shit, 10 meaning you've been studying things for a while and you really get an idea that the government and all these spiritual institutions, including and most notably the Vatican, are lying to you. So most people aren't even into the 5 category here, so they're not going to believe. They'll give this idiot the benefit of the doubt. And my goodness, how many Catholics will say he just called the Pope an idiot? He's going to hell. Oh boy, you bet. I want to bet because I've just had can you imagine a little conversation here? All right, I die, and I'm up there at St. Peter's gates, and he asked me, okay, we're going to let you in, but did you call the Pope an idiot? Yes. Okay, you can get in. You're first in line. Get him to the front of the line. He's in. That's what'll happen. So, call the Pope an idiot, and you get to heaven right away. All right, Greg, let's get serious here. A couple announcements before we talk about the dirty Pope. Or wait, the dirty poop or the dirty Pope? Okay. On Monday, 7 p.m., I believe it's Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to do a live YouTube so you can call in or you can chat with all your questions. And it's going to be basically a show where you answer. I very rarely take questions anymore. I used to do shows every day where people would call in and I got sick and tired of it. And to be honest with you, it was either people that were your kind of like your fan club that believe everything you say, or it was people that were COINTEL people trying to say that I was some kind of operative from the CIA or Mossad. And I'd be doing a story. This is why I stopped questioning. Well, I do it every now and then. I'd be talking about some subject, like, okay, the empire's greatest, let's see, how about if I was talking about Pope Francis and child abuse? Then the guy'd call in and he'd go, hey, I want to ask you about 9/11. Well, can you at least stay on point here? I mean, and then it would get so ridiculous that, it was just a waste of time, to be honest with you. And in a sense, a lot of these talk shows are a waste of time. And the point is that what do you want to call in for? Unless you've got a really good question, or you want to talk, like what I'm going to do is basically just get on the live stream, and then you can ask me any damn question you want. How's that? That way I won't get upset that you're not on point, and you can have no pressure whatsoever. You can ask me things like, when's the last time you took your dog in to get a worming or something? I don't care. Or you can get to the serious questions. Well, that's serious. You can ask me about anything, and I'll see if I can answer it. And if I don't like it, I just won't answer it. It's my show, right? Might as well be honest. But anyway, so that's Monday the 27th, 7 p.m. Pacific time, and you can look on YouTube. Go to my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com, and you can get the link, because and then the subscribers, they get a link, so you know when to go. So how do you find somebody? You know, I remember, and before I get to the dirty poopy, okay, reminds me of when I was a kid. You know, always told me, don't say the words P or P. Say one or two. You know, I gotta go number one. I gotta go number two. I used to get up in class and go, I gotta go number three. And they'd say, what's that? I'd say, what's 1 and 2 combined? 3. Okay. So you can either go 1, 2, or 3. I'm sure that really matters in the world we're talking about today, right? Yeah, it's about as interesting as what we're going to talk about today with the dirty Pope who wears white. And so go. It's August 27th, 7 p.m. And so you can either, I'll have a Skype number you can call, or you can use a chat. You can ask me the questions on chat, and that might be as easy as, you know, you don't have to be long. Just answer a simple question. You know, even what day is it? I'll answer that. I'll try to answer that. So today, the Dirty Pope, this story has been covered all over the place when he first became the head of this satanic organization and the head of all these criminals who bow down to him and kiss his ring because he is the head of this, is Pontifex Maximus. And they always make him out to be this wonderful guy, no matter what pope it is, and they all turn out to be idiots. I remember when I was in Rome, it was during the era of John Paul II, after they just killed John Paul I because they didn't like him. They did their own investigation, by the way. And he was Polish. Now I'm Polish, so I go to Italy, and I'm there, and these Italians, as smart as they are, looked at me and said, you know, you look like the Papa. I said, really? He said, and I know why you're here. Why? You're here because you're the illegitimate son of the Pope. You're Polish. You look like him, and you're here to get all his money. That's what they told me. And then, you know, when you find out that Pope Paul II, whatever his name was, the Polish Pope, he was, you know, what did he do during World War II? He was a cyanide salesman. And he was involved in all, you know, all of the horrendous things going on. So he was no good guy either. And they have it's crazy. I remember the two really crazy things is, how is this guy considered the king of the world, and how is he considered Christ on earth? Now, most people think that the Catholic Church has always considered the Pope to be the vicar of Christ. Well, that's not true, because this didn't happen till a maniac Pope in the 1800s decided he was Christ on earth because he had visions. And so he had to get the other cardinals to agree, and they wanted to put him away in an insane asylum, basically. But they couldn't, because he got the Jesuits behind him, and they strong-armed the cardinals, many who said, this is crazy. The Pope is not God on earth. But in the Jesuits' wisdom, they strong-armed the cardinals to finally pass this law. So basically, here you got these idiots wearing red hats saying, now, I think it'd be good to, like, from now on, tell everybody that this is God on earth. And man, could we rake in the money. And that's what happened. They didn't exactly say it that way. And if you read a book, I've always loved this book. It's by Mr. Well, I usually have it in front of me. But it's a great book called How the Pope Became Infallible. And it's by a former high-level Vatican priest called Bernard Hessler from Germany. And since we were speaking about Pope Paul II, he wrote the book. It was an incredible book, and it really documents well. I mean, in a very, very, very well-documented manner, how the Pope became infallible in the Vicar of Christ. And he did go through it. I mean, just it's a very good book to read if you're really interested in how crazy these people really are. And he made a recommendation to Pope Paul II, and he had a number of bishops behind him, that this policy be looked at and perhaps changed. Now, to me, that makes a lot of sense, because his argument was this never should have happened anyway, and it was because of this, I'll be kind here, this Pope who was supposedly talking with God and had visions, that it ever came into being to begin with. But most Catholics, I mean, I did this once. I went to Catholic churches when I go to these little towns, and I, would be talking, and I'm always very nice. And, oh, I went to Notre Dame High School, and I was treated very well by the Holy Cross Fathers. But do you know when the Pope became infallible? Has this always been? Oh, yes, this has always been the way it was. The Pope has always been God on earth. Nobody really knew. I didn't meet one person that knew anything about it. And they, obediently went down, prayed, stood up when the Pope rang the bells. When the little basket came by, they gave money. But they had no idea that this policy was ridiculous. And so this guy, Bernard Hessler, writes this book, beautiful, well written and well documented, good guy. And all he was saying to Pope Paul II was, listen, could you at least look at this? There's so many people that do not agree with this policy, and why don't we, in our next Vatican Council or whatever they do, why don't we see if we get it changed? Well, he sent that letter to Pope John Paul II, and I swear to God, within a month he was dead. And he was 40-some years old, in good health. And then I found it very strange that there was never any investigation about this death at all. Kind of like you never see the investigation about all the Clinton deaths, the people that die because they get to know the Clintons. Either it's they have a disease that's called, talk to the Clintons and you'll die within 24 hours from whatever they're breathing on you, or they have a hit team that takes care of people. And boy, when you go to the Clinton Chronicles and you look and you start researching how many people have died near them that knew things about them in the strangest of manners. For one, this guy had some information about Clinton's sex life when he was governor, or his drug use. And he ended up in a duffel bag in a number of different pieces. And the coroner in Arkansas, this is a true story, said that he committed suicide. Now, how do you commit suicide? What, do you cut your arms and legs off and stuff yourself in a bag? It's ridiculous. And the case is going, check it out. I'm not BSing you on that story. So this guy, he might have just been stuffed in a duffel bag. I'm not sure about all the arms and legs, but how do you kill yourself in a duffel? I mean, it's crazy. And there were worse stories. People getting shot twice in the head. They killed themselves. How do you shoot yourself twice in the head and then say it's suicide? I guess people have said it can happen, but I find it kind of difficult, especially when the bullets are both in the back of the head. If you can get off 2 rounds, let me know, William. Okay. So that's just another thing. So here we have Bernard Hassler, who wrote this book, How the Pope Became Infallible. Get it. I don't know if you can get it free. I have somebody gave me a copy, and it's really worth reading because it really shows you the ridiculousness of this idea that these guys are even close to Christ. But anyway, he ends up dead after sending the letter. I mean, days. This guy was gone because you cannot. Yeah, maybe since Pope John Paul II was Christ, he just struck him dead right there. You know, like people say, God can just point his finger to you and you're dead. Maybe that's what he did. Okay, so there you go. So now that's a good intro here to what we want to do today. And that is, we want to talk about the Poopy Pope and his connection to the Dirty War in Argentina. And I want to say this on the first, let's start here on the first few minutes by recapturing a number of these articles that came out in the mainstream. I mean, everybody covered this story. The New Yorker, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Daily Beast, all of these people. And they always laid doubt in your mind that he did this, but, you know, there was always this idea that, well, you never can be sure. And the nice thing about this is that most people, when I say nice, I mean what's really good for most humanity, because if people knew the truth really, I don't think the world could exist anymore. I mean, if they really understood everything, I think this place would, I mean, I don't see how people could wake up in the morning and actually do anything. They would be stunned. They would be like statues going, oh my God, I can't move. This has all been a lie. So the truth can kind of put a damper on the unrealistic world that you really live in. And what could it do to the masses of Catholics who believe he's Christ? I mean, it would just destroy them if they really knew the truth. And then what they do when they read an article like The Pope's Dirty Past by Christopher Dickey in the Daily Beast, they go, oh my goodness, see, he's being persecuted just like Jesus Christ was. These people will do anything to persecute Christ. And that's how they view it. And that, isn't that nice? You know? And he can sit up there, put little kids on his lap, and my goodness, don't sit on the Pope's lap, please, if you're a little kid. I'm going to not tell you why on the air, but don't do it. So he comes out like a martyr, right? Because he can't be involved in this stuff. He was really trying to help all these people. And that's how the Jesuits get away with it too. You know? Oh, they're just martyr. They're just, look at these bad people talking so badly about them. And then you got to put up with, for years, getting like hate letters from Catholics going, you hate Catholics. Something must have happened to you, Greg. I bet you were abused and now you didn't get any money from them and all you want to do is destroy their lives. That's what you got to put up with. When you try to just look and say, listen, get to the bottom, I mean, of these stories. Don't, you know, you can have all the accusations you want, but the point of the matter is, let's put it on the table and not just dismiss it as this guy could never do anything wrong, or the Jesuits could never. They're just great educators, and they have nothing to do with any of this, the sickness that's going on in the world. Oh, really? That's really the error. And you know, it's a great way to do. These guys have the best jobs in the world because they can be accused of everything, and there can be hard evidence, but they never get prosecuted. You know. And to give you an example, I want to do this story about the Pope's dirty past in the second half hour because I only have 4 minutes. But let me comment a little bit about the American political scene. And yesterday I mentioned, this is really important because you know the Jesuit philosophy here of the Hegelian dialectic is at work. And it's really at work in the justice system, because if you watch what they're doing, they're looking at the system of justice as there's a two-tier system, let's put it that way. There's a hypocritical system going on, and it's geared to get people on the people who, middle-class America who wants to, everybody's equal. The hands of justice are equal. They want to ingrain in their mind that no, it's not. You're never going to have equal justice in this country, and get used to it. And that's what's going on in Washington right now, and Trump's involved in it. He's there just to be the sacrificial scapegoat. He's not going to go in, he's not going to jail. He's not going to get, he's just there. But all of the people, there's a number of people around him that really have done nothing outside of the normal tax evasion and all this stuff that would have never been charged, that are going to jail. Let me give you an example. One of his campaign guys, for 100 days he worked, was in solitary confinement for some tax charges. This is from their big special investigation about Russian collusion, which there isn't any that you can see, and this is orchestrated. But now you're getting the Justice Department, which has got an attorney general who's Republican. He does nothing. And that's why they put him in there. So you got all these guys like bowling pins falling down, going to jail, that knew Trump, right? And they're, the reason that they're being prosecuted is because of their association with them. Their crimes are basically white-collar stuff. And they never would have been prosecuted otherwise, because there's a lot of other white-collar people out there that are doing a lot worse. And the second guy, one of his personal attorneys, pleaded guilty recently to crime. There weren't any crimes. And his lawyer, who was the closest lawyer to the Clinton family, his name is Lanny something, makes his client plead guilty to crimes he never committed. There weren't any crimes. And the idea is that because he pleaded guilty, Trump is guilty, because Trump told him to pay off this porn star that he had sex with so she wouldn't talk. And basically it's not a campaign violation because it's his personal money, and it's done all the time, especially with a guy like him. So there were no crimes to begin with. He pleads guilty to crimes. I mean, then on the other hand, there are blatant crimes being committed by the Clintons and all of their people in the Obama administration. How about the time that Obama did violate the campaign financing laws, but you know what they did to him? They gave him a $300,000 fine. Now we got a guy going to jail because he knows Trump, who didn't even commit a crime. So they're doing this on purpose, because they're allowing the Clintons and all of these people to go free who happen to be on the Democratic left, and then all the supporters of Trump are usually people like go to Walmart. They're middle-class people. They're the salt of America. They want to see people that, wake up every morning and think there's a fair system, and they're seeing right before their eyes there isn't. And really the reason it's being done is so they get used to it. That's the way it's going to be. Don't ever think you're going to get justice, because look at what's happening here. And you can't get this accomplished unless you've got a shill like Trump in there to play the patsy, to play this guy. And that's what he's doing. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.